A young princess, born without the slightest flicker of magic, watched her world crumble the night her beloved mother was lost. Left in the cold hands of a cruel father who wished her dead, she seemed utterly powerless. Yet, she held a solitary secret, a formidable strength greater than any grand spell, the chilling, clear vision of her own tragic fate at the hands of the tyrant emperor. Could she possibly navigate the treacherous waters of this dark destiny? Or was her future already etched in stone? Our tale begins on that fateful, thundering night, the storm mirroring the upheaval of the royal house. It was the night the little princess, whom her mother had named Anasia, meaning immortality, drew her first breath. Cruelly, the child was utterly devoid of any magical power. Still, when her mother pressed a final, loving kiss to her forehead, a faint, fleeting magic circle appeared. With a soft, final sigh and a tear, the mother wept and passed away. Hushed chaos descended as servants swiftly gathered, adhering to the emperor's ruthless decree. Every single possession of his wife, Diana, must be collected and burned, leaving no trace. He further commanded that his newborn daughter's name was never to be uttered in his presence, nor was she to be spoken of, a brutal testament to the fact he had never loved his wife. Several days later, the scene was one of cold neglect. Servants flitted around the palace, occasionally passing by the little Princess Athanasia, but offering her little attention or care. We see the tiny princess, her belly empty, giving into the pull of exhaustion. As she slept, she slipped into a wondrous, magical world, a realm glittering with countless magic circles. She drifted toward a solitary, shimmering magic crystal with a book suspended inside. Compelled, she reached for the crystal and, with an infant's instinct, bit it. The crystal shattered, and the magical book emerged. As she opened its aged pages, a soft voice, the comforting echo of her mother's voice, whispered, "Take care of yourself, my precious one, for this is your future." The pages came alive, showing her a harrowing scene, her future self, a young princess standing before her father and the entire court, subjected to a dreadful trial. The accusation was violating a decree and employing a black sorcerer to plot the emperor's assassination. Athanasia wept intensely, her tiny heart breaking, desperately telling her father that it wasn't true, that she was innocent. All she had ever longed for was his love, and she begged him to save her. His reply was a knife thrust. "You are not my daughter. I never loved you." The emperor turned his back, issuing the cold order for her to be imprisoned forever. The dream fractured, and we returned to a stark reality. Anasia woke, her cries intense, her small body shaking. This cannot be my future, she thought, a fierce, protective certainty blooming in her infant heart. The maid Lillian instantly arrived, her familiar arms scooping up the distressed princess, trying to soothe her cries. Athanasia clung to her, recognizing that Lillian was the only solace she had. Lillian, the daughter of a count and her mother's dear friend, had sacrificed her life of nobility to come to the palace as a maid, purely to look after the abandoned child. Without her, Anasia knew she would have starved. "I am just an infant princess," she thought to herself, "yet I know my future. Who would ever believe me?" All she understood was that she lived in a world of magic, where every noble could wield a spell. Legend spoke of a towering structure, the source of all magic, housing a great sorcerer capable of annihilating the empire. But even mightier was her father, the emperor, with his astonishing power. Still, to Anasia, he was simply an unjust emperor, one who, in her terrifying dream, had exiled and imprisoned her for a crime she never committed. Athanasia tried to seek refuge in sleep once more, only to wake again, tears streaming, the haunting image of the dream repeating. She absolutely refused to accept that future. 3 years passed, marked by Anasia's quiet, solitary watch. The servants were cleaning the neglected palace. A new maid spoke excitedly to an older one, expressing her surprise at the Ruby Palace's lively atmosphere and its rumored friendly air. She was eager to meet the princess, having heard she was a lovely child. We find Princess Anasia in her small room, surrounded by piles of books. She looked out the window, curiosity pulling her, and asked the passing servants where they were going. The maid told her the flowers had bloomed beautifully, and they were off to tend to them. Excitement sparked in the princess. She wanted to help. Soon, Anasia was wearing work clothes, enthusiastically assisting with the decorations. While walking through the palace grounds, she spotted the new maid standing nervously by a room door, clearly lost. Anasia approached and kindly asked what she was doing. The maid, flustered, confessed she was new and had wandered astray. She looked at the princess and, in her inexperience, mistook her for the gardener's daughter. Anasia asked where she needed to go. The maid's eyes narrowed with avarice. She wanted to go to a place full of shiny gold. Anasia suggested the fields of golden wheat, the warm golden bread, or sunflowers. The maid grew angry, clarifying that she meant expensive, glittering things. Anasia, with the wisdom of a child who reads her future, told her that true treasures are kept hidden. She offered for the maid to follow her. They arrived at the kitchen and stood outside. The maid scoffed. "Are you making fun of me, little girl? Valuable things in the kitchen." Anasia patiently explained that the Ruby Palace had been abandoned for years. Even if there were treasures once, they would have been taken long ago. The maid then inquired about the emperor. Athanasia answered with a touch of melancholy, "His Majesty is far too busy to care about us." Just then, the maid Hannah emerged with a plate of sweets. The new maid's eyes widened and glittered. The plate was decorated with genuine gemstones. She asked Anasia how to get inside. Anasia told her to wait, then approached Hannah, asking sweetly if she could have a few sweets. Hannah readily agreed. However, the maid Sishia intervened, telling Hannah she shouldn't give the princess things without permission. Athanasia turned her charm on Sishia, begging with such a cute, innocent expression that Sishia's heart melted. She gave the princess the entire plate of sweets, whispering a conspiratorial instruction not to tell Lillian. Athanasia took the sweets and walked back toward the kitchen with the new maid. When the maid saw the golden plates and spoons inside, her eyes gleamed with greed. She quickly began collecting the golden items, prying the gemstones from the plates and stuffing them into a bag. But Princess Anasia was watching. With quick resolve, she took the stolen loot from her and declared, "All of this belongs to me." The maid snapped. She grabbed a knife and lunged at Anasia. The princess, driven by her prophetic knowledge, dodged and immediately yanked the rope holding the chandelier. It crashed down, stunning the thieving maid. Soon, the sounds of many servants rushing toward the kitchen filled the air to check on the princess. Guards took the thief away. That night, Lillian gently brushed the little princess's hair. She confessed her deep worry over the incident with the thief. Anasia assured her she was fine, offering her a tiny, grateful flower. As the princess settled into her bed and Lillian quietly left the room, Anasia spoke to herself, the weight of her secret heavy in the silence. "I'm so glad you are safe, Lillian. It's only because of the prophetic dream I saw. If I hadn't acted today, Lillian would have caught that maid, and the thief would have stabbed her in the stomach, and she would have died. My name is Anasia, the magical princess who cannot use magic," she continued. "But I have a secret. I can see my own future. As for my father, he never loves me, and I believe this terrible dream is my cruel fate. But I refuse to simply accept it like this." The scene shifted to the austere palace of His Majesty, the Emperor. A guard entered his chambers with correspondence, informing him that night reports detailed a thief who had entered the Ruby Palace and attacked the little princess, but that she had handled the situation herself and the thief was captured. The Emperor's face contorted in anger. He told the guard dismissively that he did not want to know those details. Finally, we moved to the chambers of a strange man who suddenly woke from his sleep, his eyes blazing. Who is this who defies the fate of the Obelian Empire? He glanced toward the palace, his attention suddenly focused on the forgotten princess. Thus ended our first episode. In a faraway magical land lived a poor princess. Her mother died shortly after giving birth, and her father, who despised her, never wanted to see her again. The tale unfolded with crushing familiarity. The princess grew up without the emperor's love, living alone, desperate, and unhappy for so long. At the age of 9, she met her father for the very first time. A flicker of hope ignited. Perhaps this person is my only family. To earn his affection, she tried her absolute utmost. But when she turned 14, at her first grand ball, all her hopes were tragically shattered. The truth was that the emperor had another daughter, a girl named Jeanette, dazzling and beautiful, who resembled a pure angel. In an instant, Jeanette captured everyone's hearts and love, even the emperor's. He loved her fiercely and spoiled her without measure. As for the poor princess, driven by her desperate need for her father's love, she reached out for the forbidden comfort of dark magic. Ultimately, her father exiled her and her miserable life ended there. Anasia slammed the book shut, tears spilling down her cheeks. This is truly unfair. A very miserable ending. I am sure that's me. The scene shifted to the servants busy in the royal palace. Anasia watched them from afar. Due to the thief incident, the number of people in the kitchen had multiplied. It would be nearly impossible to sneak in now. I won't let something like this make me lose my real hope of collecting money, she resolved. She cherished gold, or anything shiny, and had already collected many small golden dolls. At that moment, she decided on a new strategy. She walked into the kitchen, a picture of innocent charm, and addressed the servants. "Good evening. I'd like to eat some chocolate, please." All the maids were astonished and delighted that she was actually asking them for something. Within minutes, they prepared the chocolate for her. They were all happy to cater to her. She was, after all, a pretty and charming little girl. Anasia sat next to a fountain, savoring her sweets, and talked to herself about her secret crush. "Perhaps I will meet him when I turn 19, she mused. Or maybe I'll meet him before that. I think my luck will be great. Then she remembered Lillian. "I will take Lillian with me," she vowed. "I will never leave her." Just then, a piece of chocolate slipped, staining her dress. She decided to wash herself in the fountain but nearly tumbled in. She looked at her reflection in the water and remembered people's words. She strongly resembled her mother, but her eyes were her father's. Unfortunately, when it came to magical power, she possessed none. Her eyes were certainly distinct, but Anasia knew the book spoke of another girl, Jeanette, who also had those same unique eyes. "This doesn't mean anything to me," she insisted to herself. "I must escape once I collect the money. When I collect the money, I will escape immediately." She retrieved her pouch of coins, intending to hide it in the forest, knowing the front palace guard was too strict to allow her to leave. She walked and walked until she reached a strange, towering structure. This is not the Ruby Palace. So, what is this place, she wondered. She approached, finding it completely empty. She recalled hearing the maids whisper, "We will strengthen the guard, and we will search the princess's room specifically." That's why she had rushed under her bed, grabbed her money, and run to the forest to hide it. Days later, she returned to retrieve her stash. She searched high and low, only to discover a squirrel had already carried it off. "Wait, little squirrel," she called, but he darted away. Quick thinking, she decided to find a peanut for him, hoping he'd trade her jewels for the snack. The plan worked. This realization meant the forest was no longer safe. I must find a safer place, she thought, immediately recalling the abandoned place she'd stumbled upon. She went straight there. She wandered through the vast, empty halls. How can this towering place be without shelter and no one knows it? She walked further, eventually reaching the main square, where she found statues, perhaps of pure gold. Then, the true surprise. She turned around to find two tall figures standing behind her. One man spoke with chilling indifference. "Since when has this little insect been in our palace?" But then, the man paused, realizing her eyes were exactly the same as his. Anasia blurted out, "Father," though she was internally spiraling. "What's the story exactly? Is this my father, or is this the Devil King's palace? Did I come to the wrong place? Where exactly do I get out of here now? I want to escape quickly." The man tried to recall, his mind sifting through old memories, eventually remembering a girl who had been crying. He remembered her name, Anasia, what her mother had named her. He told her, "You've grown so much." He then reached out, pinching her cheeks a few times before telling a servant, "Bring tea immediately." She tried to bolt, not wanting to share tea with him, but he quickly caught her. In the struggle, her jewels fell onto the floor. They entered the palace, and the atmosphere at the sitting was terrible. Anasia thought, "What a boring sitting this is. Does he want me to talk or say something? How long will I sit here?" He broke the silence. "Are you always silent? Can't you talk? Come on, talk." He assured her, "I won't do anything to you." She finally spoke, and he heard her voice after a long, awkward session of quiet. He brought her cake and food, but she was too shy to eat. He dismissed a servant who entered and then began to talk about himself, the emperor who lived in that land, causing corruption, burning things, and misleading people. He claimed he wasn't as he was before. "Come on, drink the tea and eat the food," he instructed. Anasia was a nervous mess. What do I call him? What should I say to him? Should I call him father? She finally settled on that name, and her small voice whispered, "Papa." Claude looked at her and did not respond. Anasia's heart pounded. She was terrified, thinking he would destroy her or exile her instantly, realizing she should have called him Your Majesty the Emperor, like any ordinary person. The scene shifted back to the head maid Lillian, who was frantically instructing the other girls to search everywhere for the princess. Suddenly, Anasia appeared before them, running and crying. Lillian immediately embraced her, asking where she had been and expressing her extreme worry. She turned to the king's guard, demanding to know why he was with the princess. The guard informed her that the king had said he would summon his daughter again. Anasia wept, hating the thought of seeing him again. He had been so cruel before. She didn't understand what he was trying to do, now that he had decided he would oversee the princess from now on. But she resolved internally she would not let him tempt her with sweets. Afterward, Anasia went with Lillian to meet her father, the emperor. He welcomed her, noting that a long time had passed since they last met. She bravely replied that he was right, as she'd had the honor of meeting him last 5 years ago. The emperor was surprised she remembered that. Before he could finish his sentence, Anasia felt overwhelmingly nervous, on the verge of vomiting. Her father was the emperor of the Obelian Empire, praised by everyone as a great man, but she knew he was cruel and greatly merciful, a contradictory term she used internally. The emperor spoke again, claiming he had been unable to take care of her due to his preoccupation with government affairs, even warning Lillian about the need to mind Anasia's health and vitality. Anasia, with the clear-eyed certainty of her prophecy, understood he was lying. The issue wasn't that he was too busy to care for her, as he claimed. If he had truly wanted to, her life would have been an absolute joy. She wanted him to continue leaving her alone and let her return to her quiet life immediately. The emperor, however, continued, informing Lillian that he had heard every detail about the incident at the Ruby Palace. From this day forward, he would personally supervise the princess, and she would receive the treatment befitting her royal status. The scene shifted to the staff quarters. The maids Hannah and Sishia whispered excitedly. Hannah couldn't believe the king had actually come to the Ruby Palace. They were certain the princess must be overjoyed now. Then we saw the emperor seated with the princess at a table in the garden, having breakfast. The princess was still rigid with nerves. She told herself that she was supposed to avoid her father and live quietly. After all, the disaster in her future was caused by meeting him. As long as she never met him, she could change her fate. Nevertheless, this sudden turn was utterly frustrating. The maids then placed an array of sweets on the table. The sight impressed the princess, This was indeed the appropriate treatment for royalty. She thought about how cold her father had been before, wondering what game he was playing now. Could it be poisoned? She wondered, resolute that she would never let the cake tempt her. The emperor noticed her hesitation. "Why aren't you eating?" he asked, a knowing tone in his voice. "I feel you think the sweets are poison." The princess was shocked. Could he read her thoughts? She quickly denied it, saying she loved cake, but Lillian had told her not to eat too many sweets or she'd get cavities. The emperor was surprised, pointing out she'd eaten some just yesterday. But Anasia couldn't hold back any longer. She took a bite, and the cake was exquisitely delicious. She had never tasted anything so good. She couldn't believe she let down her guard because of a small cake like this. Then, deciding it would be wasteful to leave a single crumb, she ate the entire cake. The servants and the emperor's guard watched from a distance, relieved to see the tension between them easing slightly. The emperor looked at his daughter and invited her to join him for tea every day. Thus began Anasia's new life, one in which she saw her father every single day. Though she did not understand why he had suddenly decided to play the role of a happy family, it made her deeply nervous. Yet, every now and then, something nice did happen. The princess tried her best to master things for her father's sake, and whenever she made a mistake, she felt certain it was over for her. But for some reason, her father never criticized her. Perhaps he regretted what had happened and was trying to be kind now. Anasia realized she wasn't as afraid of him as she used to be. Anasia eventually drifted off to sleep. The next morning, she got ready for a stroll, having heard about the flowers near the lake. She approached her father happily and walked through the garden, filled with joy. She picked many flowers, running and playing with glee. Her father arrived and offered to show her the way, suggesting they take a boat. Lillian immediately interjected, mentioning the princess was still uneasy near water. The princess quickly reassured her, asking her not to worry, knowing she must do what her father wanted. "I will stay with her," the emperor said. "So why are you worried, or do you hate the idea?" The princess quickly replied that she didn't mean that at all and she wanted to go anywhere with him. Indeed, the princess found herself alone with her father in the boat. Her fear was palpable. He stared at her the entire time. She was so nervous she could barely breathe, not knowing what to say. "What are you thinking about?" the emperor asked. The princess grew even more flustered, replying that the weather was beautiful and the lake was beautiful. Then she stammered, telling him his hair was so shiny and beautiful. She admitted that his hair truly was lovely. Every time she saw something golden, she thought of all things gold. The emperor realized she loved shiny things. He mentioned that she had her jewels, and the time would come for her to have them. Anasia noted that time passed slowly and the wind carried the sweet scent of flowers, which was a pleasant sensation. Thinking about it, she realized they weren't rowing, yet the boat was moving. It must be her father's magic. She looked at his clear blue eyes, which sparkled like a blue sapphire. She wondered to herself if her father would have loved her if she could use magic. Then, the princess saw a stunning blue lotus flower. She was captivated by its beauty and fragrant scent, wanting to touch it and take it. But as she reached, she fell into the water. Something strong grabbed her leg, and she screamed for help from her father, but he did nothing. The cold shock brought back her terrifying dream, the accusation of black magic, the lifetime imprisonment. She whispered words that implied this was her fate all along. Despite everything, she still clung to a little hope that he might accept her as his daughter. Finally, her father came and rescued her. Afterward, Anasia woke up with Lillian by her side, checking on her. When Anasia realized her father had saved her, he used his magic to instantly dry her, and she was overjoyed by his care. The emperor then asked Felix to teach her how to swim tomorrow. "It won't be a long story if my daughter drowns," he stated. They returned to the Ruby Palace, exhausted. The shock and the cold left Anasia bedridden, but she kept thinking about that day. Lillian then informed her that the flower was a dream lotus. It created an illusion to lure living beings and was purely decorative. As long as there weren't many, it wasn't dangerous. However, if you didn't possess magical powers, you would be susceptible to its allure. Anasia told her, "The problem is that I am very weak. But I don't want to drink any more of this medicine because it is too bitter." Lillian insisted she must take it to recover. That night, we saw Anasia's father by the lake. A girl appeared, saying, "You came to see me." He replied that emotions like that were long forgotten, but I don't seem to hate that girl. Many spectral hands surrounded Anasia's father. We then saw Felix looking distressed, wanting to help the king, saying, "May a bright light illuminate your path someday." Anasia's father then asked something of him. Afterward, Sishia rushed into Anasia's room, announcing that many maids were arriving to serve her. Anasia was stunned by the sight. Then, Felix arrived and told her, "I have been assigned to be your personal guard. I look forward to serving you." Thus ended today's episode of this story. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment down below to let me know what you want to see in the next part. See you in the next one.